Okay. Remote. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to one of our webinars. This time, we're going to be looking at information security management. As the world goes into remote work, this is going to be something that we absolutely have to get used to. Again, my name is Kilian Songwe. I am the president at the Global Healthcare Public Foundation. And just by way of introduction, we're going to look at the ISMS system. This is Information Security Management Systems. And I'm actually going to look at three things. I'm going to go through an introduction. We'll look at the standard for information security management, and we'll look at what is the weakest link in information security management today. So, where are we today? In 2016, just to be able to give you perspective, it was said that 758 million malicious attacks happen on our systems. This is our information systems. That actually comes down to about 86,000 per hour. So every hour, 86,000 malicious attacks happened on our information systems. And the reason why we're looking at this, therefore, is because today more people are going to be working remotely. Companies have hundreds and hundreds of people working in very different places from what would have been their traditional location of work. Therefore, there needs to be much more care taken to what happens to our information, whether it's the organization's information or it is company information or individual information or customer information, client information. So that begins to become very important. And as we look at the challenges that are going to happen with information security, you could actually be at one of the cardinal points. You could either be malicious or non-malicious. It could be harmless or it could be catastrophic. So it's going to fall somewhere in this area. And as it falls in this area, what is going to happen is you're going to have people working sometimes without even knowing that they've actually been attacked. So you could actually have a cyber attack which is harmless and non-malicious. So there is really nothing lost or nothing gained in this area. Or it could be malicious and catastrophic. So there could be actually destruction, stealing of personal information that could actually happen, and impersonations of people. Or it could also be harmless and also malicious. And in this case, when it becomes harmless, however malicious, there could be serious destruction, both to company and individuals. But then this is where you don't want to be malicious and catastrophic. When it becomes malicious and catastrophic, then there is huge loss both to the organization and to the clients and or customers that are actually affected. So just looking at what could happen today with cyber information and how much information is actually out there. There are five cardinal things that we're looking at here. You know, there is mobile technology. Mobile technology is part and parcel of our everyday activity today. And then there is ransomware. There is Internet of Things. This is some area, a really huge, big area. And then there is big data. This is where everybody is going to with artificial intelligence. And then, of course, there is the human factor when we talk about cyber challenges. So let's just look at our mobile technologies at the moment. What is going on with our mobile technologies? Just think about the phones you have in your hands right now. And if I may, I just actually ask you to look at those phones for a few seconds. Just look at your phone for a few seconds and think about what's happening. Your phone has a camera. It actually has a barometer. Your phone could tell you what the temperatures are around where you are. It could provide you with light. It could even tell you how fast you're walking or how fast you're driving. It has a microphone in it. It has your contacts. And it also has a GPS system which will allow you to know exactly where you are. And in some cases, some people have downloaded health apps, so it could actually tell you what your heart rate is. So imagine on your phone, you have all of this information at any given time, which means if somebody could manage to get into your phone, they know when your camera is on, they know what your heart rate looks like, they know exactly where you are at that particular moment and time and place. So there are huge challenges when we look at at our mobile phones. Then there is ransomware, which basically is it's a new fashion of people actually trying to be able to extort money from you. So they come in, they encrypt your system, and then they send out a message that says, hey, if you can pay us another $10,000 in the next hour, we could return your system to you. And then in the next hour, if you've not paid, they say, okay, you have another 30 minutes and now it's $20,000. And there are people who are always going to fall for this and people who are always going to be hurt by this. But now I think the biggest thing that is actually happening is the Internet of Things. In the Internet of Things, what is actually going on around you? There is an identity that you have, there is a location that can be sensed, there is the computing, and there is communication that is happening. But all of these things are happening around your object, and we take again the case of the cell phone just to be able to look at that. But what you're seeing here is this actually multiplies itself. So you have all of these things happening simultaneously in many, many different points across the world. So at any given time, all of these activities is happening. It is estimated that there is 21 billion Internet of Things devices that are talking to each other today, 2020. 21 billion Internet of Things, basically our cell phones, 2-3 mobile phones per person, our computers, our iPads, all kinds of things that are all talking to each other. Basically what you have here is you suddenly have so many different points of information that can be hacked. And should any one of those points of information be hacked, instantly that means whoever the hacker is, they've actually gained access to a lot of information that would otherwise not have been gotten. I'll give you a simple example. I like to have a nice car. And if you've not noticed, if you look at the number plate, it actually has my name on it. So when I get much richer, that's what I should have. But let's look at this car for a second and think about Internet of Things. If you're driving a car that is made in the last 5 years, it's going to have a GPS in it. It's going to have a nice entertainment system, some good music. It's going to give you internet access, GPS. It's actually going to tell you, heat up the chairs for you so that if you're in the snow, the car is a little bit warm. It's going to tell you about the safety precautions on the car. It's even going to tell you sometimes that the road has problems, the road is not very well, tell you about the road conditions, and you could remotely unlock the car from a distance. So all of these things you could do with Internet of Things. One of the big surprises about this, and there was a recent study that was done just to show what hackers could do with your car. So you could actually be in this car and hackers could actually organize and turn on your wipers for you. So it could be, yes, a very dry, nice day, but because of Internet of Things and this whole connection going on at the same time, hackers could actually feed into the system and instantly you could have your wipers on, or they could actually stop your car completely because the cars that are made today are all functioning on a chip. So big data. Big data is where everybody wants to go to today. But there are some very interesting things that have happened with big data. Let's just see some of the challenges that have happened. Today, every 60 seconds, 150,000 emails are being sent every 60 seconds. 3.3 million Facebook posts are made every 60 seconds. Google searches, 3.8 million Google searches. 500 hours of YouTube videos are uploaded every 60 seconds. 29 million WhatsApp messages are sent. Almost 450,000 tweets. And I can't hesitate to think about it. When I was putting together the slide, I just thought about 450,000 tweets, but this was before the last election in the United States. So I guess those tweets must have gone up since the last election in the States. But all of these things are happening in just a few seconds. Any few million things could happen. But now there is also the human factor. The human factor is one of the biggest challenges in information security. And why is it? Because of passwords. We tend to have very soft passwords. They're not as encrypted, they're not as strong as they're supposed to be. And as a result, people can certainly get this information from time to time. There is this saying that was actually put out there by Chris Pirot. He says, passwords are like underwear. You don't want to let people see it. You should change it often, and you should never share it with strangers. That's something that we really need to be careful about, because once our passwords are shared, instantly you've broken the code. So this is some very, as we go digital, 1.7 megabytes of new information will be produced every second for every human on Earth. And there are 7.8 billion people on Earth today. So just to give you perspective, just because we know we can see human beings and we can feel them, we can touch them, just to give you perspective. 7.8 billion people on Earth today, 1.7 megabytes. That is just another 1,000 megabytes, and every single human on Earth would be represented by a megabyte. That's how much data is being produced every second by every human being on Earth. So there is this great saying. It says, the more we see, the more there is to see. And this is just looking at it from the tip of the iceberg. And now I just show you the picture on the right-hand side. We're just looking at the tip of the iceberg, but there is so much under there that we still have to dig in to be able to find out how much information is being breached and what is going on and what can we do about that. And that's where I get into the standard, ISO 27001. ISO 27001 is a specification for an information security management system, or ISMS, as most people will have come to call it in this day. The ISO 27001 comes from a family of mutually supported information security standards from 27001 to 517, all the way to 32. But in terms of ISO 27001, it was last reviewed and confirmed in 2019, therefore making the 2013 standard the most current and available standard, because there were no changes to the ISO 27001 when it was reviewed and confirmed in 2019. So the ISO 27001 2013 standard is still our most current version for ISMS. Again, it's a high-level standard, so it basically has the 10 clauses. It starts with the scope. It goes on to the normative references, the terms and definitions. And I'm always very particular about the context of the organization in which your ISMS is going to be working in, the leadership, the planning, the support, and then, of course, the operation of your ISMS. Then, of course, there is performance evaluation, and then how do you improve this? So, key aspects of ISO 27001, basically, there are just three of them. The first one is confidentiality. This is the right people versus the wrong people. Who needs to know? Who needs to have access? You want to have only the people who need to know have the information that they need to have. So you want to be able to have security levels. You don't want somebody to walk into the bank and be able to have access to your account. Well, that is if you have something in their account, you don't want them to have access to it. If you don't have anything in their account, you still don't want them to have access to it, just in case you do have something in their account. You don't want people to have access to it. So that level of confidentiality is very important. Then, of course, there is availability. Availability of information resources. Again, talking about the banking system. Today, the automatic teller machines are all over the place, the ATMs as they're commonly known. You don't want to be able to go to an ATM, put in your card, and then there is no money coming out of it. So the presence of information resources is very important. Or you don't want to be able to go to the bank and they tell you that the systems are down. You have to wait for another hour or two to be able to make a withdrawal on your account. So the availability of information resources is very important when we look at ISO 27001 as one of the key aspects. And then the third aspect here is integrity, the accuracy and consistency of the data over its life cycle. You want to be sure that the data remains the same data all the time. one of the most simple ones that it never stops fascinating me is you try to make a very simple transaction between two accounts. You're doing a currency trade and you want to move US dollars from your dollar account to another account, and somebody hacks your account in between that. So you were going to do a trade of $10,000 and then you end up doing a trade of $100,000. Now we have issues around the accuracy and consistency of the data over that lifespan. So these three things basically are the key aspects that guide and govern ISO 27001 information security management systems: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So this is a very important statement that was made a couple of years. This actually came out of the FBI. It says there are two types of organizations: those who have suffered a cyber attack and those who don't know that they have suffered a cyber attack. So if the attack is done very softly and nicely, the attacker could actually be living in your system and working with you in your system, and you never know. So there are these two organizations that are always going to be out there. And that's why trying to get the standard in place, making sure that you have a very robust system, becomes really critical to safeguard both the organization's information and information from the customers. I threw in this dashboard because this is a really interesting dashboard, but it's a very important dashboard to think about. This is a cyber risk dashboard and risk heat. This was done by McKinsey and Company. And what this does is looking at the severity versus the likelihood. And what you're seeing up there is, if you take number one, for example, the color shade goes from low scenarios, medium scenarios, high scenarios, and very high scenarios. If you look at number one, it says unauthorized transactions. These are internal transactions. That's very high risk scenario. The likelihood is high because information security could both be external and internal. So the highest place you're going to be able to have any issues is when it's internal in that scenario. Then you go all the way, and these are different categories. You look at number two, it says unauthorized transaction external. That's the likelihood is medium, severity is going to be high. But I like to look at 9 and 11. 9 basically says disruption of service. So disruption of service, medium scenario is going to be medium, likelihood is going to be low. If somebody is going to try to hack into your information, they're not just going to hack into it just because they want to have fun. Failure of building in the environment. No, they're going to hack into it because they want to do something. If you look at number 3, it says data leakage. Data leakage, severity is going to be high. The likelihood that is going to happen is very high. Why is it very high? I'm going to show you some scenario just right after this. When we think about the standard, there are literally just 3 things in the standard. There are people, there are processes, and then there is technology that has to go around this. So that's the users, applications, the operating systems they're going to use, and the hardware that is actually involved. And within the people, the processes, and the technology, all of these has to come together and be in sync at all times. So post-COVID activities, all of the COVID activities were walking away from our general locations of work. The few big problems we face today, again, is a strong password, strong encryption, transfer risk, or awareness training. What it does basically to us is, how are we able to protect our clients and employee information? How do we manage the risk of information security effectively? How do we achieve information security compliance or reduce cost of delivery of services to our customers? With the standard 27001, we're able to do some of these things. But one of the big things today with 27001, it helps comply to some important laws. There is the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. Most people know it as the GDPR, or the Networking Information Systems Regulation. Between those 2 laws, you would almost not be able to do any kind of business within the European group of companies without the GDPR or the NIS regulations in place. And this is going to be supported by 27001. So let's look at the weakest link. Who is the weakest link? The weakest link is you and I, the human firewall. And this is why I want to tell you my interesting story. People are very willing to give information. They're always willing to give information. Look at this story. Imagine what happens when you like a Facebook page. And I'm using this diagram and my nice restaurant here to tell you a really nice story. You show up at a restaurant and the people say to you, oh, if you like our page, we'll give you a nice free drink. Of course, you want a nice free drink, you want a nice free meal. So you like the page. But in the instant when you like the page, what you've actually done is you've given them information about yourself. You've told them where you live. You've given them your phone number. You've given them information about your contacts. And so in the few seconds, while you're liking the page and transferring all of this information about yourself to the restaurant, somebody could actually be hacking into your system and then knowing all the other information about you, to include if you have a national identity card, what is your national identity number? Or if you have a social insurance number, what is your social insurance number? Because you'll be having all of this information on your phone at some given point. So in just doing something as simple as liking a Facebook page, literally what you might be doing is exposing yourself to all the things that we showed you earlier on when I spoke about mobile technologies and the impact of information security and information breach from your mobile technology, your mobile phones. So whenever you're out there and you find yourself wanting to like a page for anything, or you might actually be in a restaurant, you're trying to access the internet, and what do you find? You suddenly find the name of the restaurant, and you have a free Wi-Fi from ABC Restaurant. And instantly you connect onto that free Wi-Fi from ABC Restaurant without realizing that there is somebody else with you in the restaurant who is pretending to be the restaurant with a hotspot. As soon as you connect into that Wi-Fi, instantly they have access to your information and they could actually learn lots of things about you. So for something as simple as being in a restaurant and trying to use the restaurant's Wi-Fi, it might be nice to just ask, what is your Wi-Fi code? So that you are sure you're actually accessing the right one. But again, the human firewall is the weakest firewall in terms of our information security. How much information are we willing to give away, whether we're giving it away knowingly or we're giving it away unknowingly? So there's some very interesting things that are happening around. So the first one is phishing. I'm so amazed at how this happens. So somebody sits around, they've not seen or heard from this grandmother of theirs for the last 15, 50 years past. And all of a sudden they get an email and there is this dying lady somewhere in the world who suddenly has $1 billion and she wants to transfer it to your account. And because we're so gullible, we suddenly provide them with this information thinking, oh my God, I didn't buy the lottery ticket, but I'm about to win the lottery. And instantly you provide them with information and then they have access. So phishing is something that has been around. It's still going to continue to be around. It's just amazing how people continue to fall for it. Then there is whaling. Again, the human firewall. We're weak. Whaling, what happens here is you get you're the CFO of the company and you get an email from the CEO, supposedly the CEO, that says wire X amount of dollars from one account to the next. And because you know the email is coming from the CEO, you don't stop and ask, did you actually send this email? Should I actually send this amount of money? Well, the CEO sent the email, so wire the money. Basically, really phishing attack aimed at top management or the big fish in the organization, where one big fish just punishes another big fish. But then, how many times do people tell you, we have a policy, we have a policy, we've written a policy. All our staff go through orientation and we discuss our cyber policy. Yes, it's nice to have the policy on paper, but again, the human firewall is weak when it comes to the policies. We need to train our people. We need to make sure that our people stop being very trusting. And in today's age, where the kids are going to grow up with a nanny app, and they're going to go to a hospital with a nanny app, which is going to take care of them all the time, we have to make sure that our kids learn to trust less, because all of these devices, basically are going to expose us and expose all the information that we have to people who are trying to get into the system. So basically, the human firewall, build your human firewall. Be sure that you're actually guarding and securing all information of yours, all information that pertains to your organization, yourself. And in today's age, as we continue to work remotely, there are so many points. It's just imagine a tube of water coming down, and that tube of water has to stop at many houses to be able to allow each house to have water. Each of those intersections is a possible hacker. That's literally what it is. Each of those intersections is a possible hacker because it opens up your system to others on the pipeline. So we need to be able to build a very strong human wall that allows us to be able to protect the information, both from an organization point and from the client perspective. I throw in this slide just to be able to give you a perspective as to the numbers of places and the things that could happen when your information security is breached. A few years ago, just about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, New York had a major blackout. And that's what New York looked like in its blackout. The blackout lasted 3 days. Yes, there were all kinds of things said about cyber security. But again, just imagine one of the huge networks. If it's affected, this is what you're going to see. You're going to have a massive blackout. It could be water shortage. It could be water pipes turned off. It could be any number of things. It could be actually be a major network system, a telephone network system that is literally shut down. What would that do? You have hundreds of thousands of people who instantly cannot do any kind of communication within them, with themselves, their organizations, or their clients. So information security management systems, the standard ISO 27001 is a very useful standard to be able to work around this. But as we continue to move into remote work, it's going to be around with us for a long time. We really need to be able to think about Internet of Technologies, Internet of Things, what it is doing, what are the possible gaps that could actually exist, and what are hackers going to be doing with our system. I never like to end any of this without continuing to remind you, in this day and age, we need to stay safe. We need to make sure that we are running a good body temperature, wash our hands with running water and soap for at least 20 seconds or more. If you don't have access to running water and soap, please use a sanitizer as often as possible. Have a face wear all the time, and let's continue to respect each other and keep a good social distance. Special thanks to Sampil and Rob May for information which I got, the IT governance and the McKinsey & Co company. At this point, I would invite you to any comments, questions, remarks that you may have. Again, one of the many things that we do at the foundation is we help organizations work with the management systems. We help them build strong management systems for their organizations. And this would be a very important management system that every organization wants to look into as we go into the remote work, and information security continues to be a challenge for most people. So contact us. We'll be glad to work with you around this standard, this management system, or any other management system that you will be interested in. We'll be very glad to work with you around that. Again, I'm going to welcome you at this point to any questions, comments, or just put up your hand and we'll call on you, and you could say what you want to say or ask a question. Thank you again for listening, and thank you for being with us. Okay. Okay, I see there's a hand up. Would you go on and just speak up? Just tell us your name and where you're calling in from. You might still be mute. Unmute, please. Still can hear you. Wonderful, I can hear you coming on.
Getting me?
Hello, yes?
Hello? Clear? Yes, you're getting me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Solomon and in Kampala, Uganda. So my question is, under the ISO 27001, the procedure for attaining it from from a Global Health Africa Foundation, the steps that are taken, does it also cover the fact that you will help us, the end users, get to understand how to use it and how to protect ourselves in terms of the weakest link that you've mentioned, that is the human labor? Because the human force, I doubt in any way will ever be a strong firewall, as you mentioned earlier. So is there any way that the organization, that is you, the organization, can be able to eliminate the weaknesses that we, the human beings, have?
Thank you, Solomon, for the question and your comment attached to the question. That's a really nice question. Number one of the best ways of managing the weakest link is to have continuous training. Again, I did mention the policy. People will always tell you, oh, one of the things we do is we have a policy, and once you get into the company, we take you through the policy. The only way of ensuring the weakest link becomes actually your strongest link is have as many trainings as frequently as possible. Just last week, there was a big attack on Facebook. If you use every opportunity like the one from last week to have a quick training and to have a quick sensitization and to remind the staff about the potentials of information security and information breach, that would be good. Also, you want to ensure that people are changing their passwords as often as possible. One of the biggest concerns we have with working remotely is people have gone home today and they have taken the company's computers, they've taken the company's phones, they've taken the company's pads, and those company phones, computers, or pads all have company security patches to them. So therefore, we need to continue reminding the people that they are the weakest link and they have information that they're going to easily divulge. So they have to be careful. And that's an orientation which needs to happen as often as possible. And with regards to a Global Healthcare Public Foundation, we will take you through the process of being certified to the standard, to this management system. However, it becomes incumbent on you to be able to contact all your clients, all the interested parties, and inform them about what the requirements will be for them to continue to do business with you. So if you require for all your interested parties to have a special codification to be able to interact with you, then you're going to have to tell them ahead of time. You're going to have to tell them in August that it's effective September 1. This is going to be the requirements for you to continue to do business with us. That way you're able to protect the information that you have at the company or access to the information that is at your company. So there are two phases. There's one, what we at the Global Healthcare Public Foundation can do for you to be able to get you certified to the standard. That's one. And then two, there is the orientation and training, which you have to continuously, it has to become regular. It has to become part of your practice at your organization to ensure that the weakest link can actually move into being the strongest link. Thank you, Solomon, for the question and comment.
Maybe one more question before I go.
So please.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to understand, I know cybersecurity and cyber or ethical hacking or whatever it is nowadays has become rampant in Africa, especially in the beginning economies. If organizations like a global health, a healthcare public foundation has come in, are there countermeasures for in case your system has been breached? Do you have penetrative testers, guys who can test our systems? And then if we have been already compromised, either from the weakest link, that is the human labor, can there be a countermeasure by your organization to pull us out of that ditch, retrieve the information, maybe ransomware, someone has taken us over? Is there a way you as the organization can help us also in such scenarios of recovering our systems back from the hackers, from these people that have come up of late?
That's another really great question, Simon. And unfortunately, we as a global healthcare would not be able to help you with that, but we'll be able to put you in touch with specifically IT companies that can help you with that. Now, also, while I'm talking about that, it's very important to know the level of security that you need for your company and what you're actually working with. Because the more sensitive your data, it becomes incumbent for you as a company to actually work with IT firms to see if they can actually hack into your system. That's an excellent way of actually protecting the system, by being able to see if somebody can hack into your system. And there are lots of IT groups out there today that are actually being paid to hack into systems, just so that the systems owners actually know where their weakest link is, and then they can actually be able to increase the encryption, or at least reduce the potential that they shall be eventually hacked into. So there are IT companies that will do that. At the Global Healthcare Public Foundation, we actually just deal with standards and helping organizations to get to management system certifications. So we will work with you and we'll be able to put you in the direct contact with whichever IT company would be your best fit, because there are many of them for different sizes and for different reasons. We'll have to come up with a best fit for your organization at that point. Thank you. There is a question that came in: how do I deal with confidential information in case of a virtual audit? So in case of a virtual audit, what is going to have to happen is at the very beginning, both parties are going to have to sign confidentiality agreements. Basically, signing a confidentiality agreement is you entrusting each other that all the information that is going to be shared at the time of the audit is going to be maintained and used purposely for the intent of that audit. That's a very, very important thing to have in place. Confidentiality agreements, and those confidentiality agreements should be as detailed as they need to be to ensure that there is no room for any of your information to be out. Again, if you're going to do a remote audit, you might also want to consider the firm that you're working with to see what are their ISO certifications, because if they're not certified to 27001, you want to be able to ensure that they have at least some good quality management systems in place, such as 9,000, which actually allows you to be sensitive, or for you to be sure that there are some systems in place that are going to guarantee the safety of your data when it gets to them, or how they use it. So I don't think that the issue of confidentiality with remote audits, issue of confidentiality with on-site audits, the same information is going to be available at an on-site audit as is going to be. The same information is going to be available at an on-site audit as it would be at a remote audit. I think the only difference here is the medium of communication, and if there is a good firewall to ensure that as the data leaves from one point to the next point, it doesn't become decrypted. David wants to get a copy of your presentation. Sure, the team here would make that possible for you. Just give us another 48 hours and send us an email, info@aglobalhf.org, and we'll be able to send the presentation to you. Nelson, always nice to have you. Your hand is up. Please go on and speak, please.
Hi, Kilian. Thank you. Thank you very much for yet another very nice presentation. This is really, not a question, maybe something for discussion. Literally, when you look at private sector development overall, beyond just information standards, all standards are really a public good. If we are going to change the complexion of our business environment, then standards are a must. So in that context, standards become like a public good. I really don't know what we are going to do to really ensure that our business environment gets into standards so that they can improve the way they do business, whether it is information standards, whether it is just quality management systems. I don't know. This as a public good, have you thought about how we can look around to generate resources that we can put towards enterprises in individual African countries in order to bring them up to a level where they really contribute meaningfully to the development, aspirations. Kind of long, but it's a challenge that is in my mind all the time. Thank you.
It's always nice to hear from you, Nelson, because you always get me thinking, and you always get me, I start going out in this long tangents, but you raise a very important point. And a couple of weeks ago, this is actually our 14th webinar, and I don't remember, I think it's somewhere in the first 5, we did a webinar on business continuity. It is very important to note that a certification in business continuity is going to soon become a requirement for you to do business with any international organization, because international organizations, business parties are going to want to ensure that there is some aspect that guarantees to them that if they get into business with you, regardless of the holes, you will still be around, whether be around to provide some commodities, be around to provide some supplies. Business continuity is going to be a very important thing. And business continuity certification is going to do business with more, a lot of European companies today. They want that ensures that there is going to become for us on the African continent. How do we now take our governments and a lot of the interested parties? But I think that there is a great room as we continue to develop the PPP, the private-public partnership relationships. I think that is going to be an excellent point for us to actually start saying, as we develop the PPPs, we should actually have a business continuity model attached to it. And if we attach a business continuity model to the PPP, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ensuring that there is a management system that ensures that standards are maintained and that the systems are there and the processes are going to be the same every time for every interested party. I thank you so very much indeed, Nelson. It's always great to talk with you. And I'm beginning to think about how do we bring this and how do we get the PPPs a partnership to be able to buy into this so that we can make this a part of doing business and therefore be able to bring business standards as a part of just regular everyday business. Thank you so much. One other question from...
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Nelson. Thank you. How can universities go online and how can they ensure security? How can all universities today should be online. I don't know that they have a choice. They have to be online. Their main business is to transfer knowledge to people who are not on campus. Ensure security. Our firewalls, starting with our weakest link, is going to be very important. But moving on from our weakest link, we need to be able to have very robust firewalls with what we're going to do. But also, we also need to be able to understand what is the risk metrics involved. I didn't say anything about the risk analysis in doing in 27001, but when you look at clause 8, clause 8 talks about your operations. But when you go to do your operations, regardless of what your business is, and that's the beautiful thing about the ISO 27001, it doesn't really matter whether you're a bakery or you're a cement producer or you're a school or university. The standard applies to all small, medium, and large businesses. But you need to be able to do a risk analysis, which is what operations clause 8 of the standard looks at. You need to be able to do a risk analysis and be able to weight out your risk analysis. I just showed you the risk dashboard that the McKinsey and Company Group put out. And you literally need to go through every step of your risk analysis to be able to see where do you have to ensure that your security systems are as tight as they need to be to ensure that there is no breach. And then, of course, you might want to be able to pay hackers to be able to see how they could actually get into your system, because that way you would learn where your weakest link is other than the human firewall. Okay, thanks so much for the question. Do we have another hand up? Again, we can be reached at info@aglobalhf.org. Should you have any questions or concerns, or you need us to help you with trying to get a management system certification, or help you talk some more about Information Security Management System, ISMS, I will be very glad to do that. Till then, I wish you a wonderful week. I'll see you same place, same time next week. Thank you so much for coming in, and please continue to have the discussion. Thank you.